Welcome, everyone. We are on the final day of our first week, speeding right along like normal. And what I would like to focus on today is first the reminder that we are, this week, what we have done is we have gone a little bit more deeply into a number of qualities that are part of our divinity, and we appropriate them as childlike. So it's interesting, right? You can take what I'm saying with a grain of salt and explore it yourself. But the things that we esteem as life-giving in a childlike way, I am actually positing to be part of our divine nature, part of our divinity. So when we talk about wonder, that was the topic one day this week, that wonder is a quality of our divinity. And we may look nostalgically at a child who's in wonder at receiving something really simple and being enamored by it, or in wonder that they can all of a sudden ride a bike. Right? Those qualities, those juicy qualities that are so fresh, that while we may look at it as a childlike quality that we may or may not have anymore, I am positing that it is actually an aspect of our divine nature that's impossible to lose, even if we forget or we lose contact with. The same with new beginnings, seeing with fresh eyes. So that was the object in part for the first session, about coming to that place within ourselves where we are engaged in seeing with the eyes of divinity, seeing from a place that we could call is quite insightful and wise and has a quality that is fresh and innocent and moves beyond our constructed ways that we can view things. And again, we look at children who can see with eyes. They say oftentimes children know. They know when somebody's safe, they know when somebody's not safe. They perceive, seeing with new eyes, and they're ready for new beginnings, oftentimes in a more flexible and spontaneous way. And we can, again, put that on as a childlike quality and something that we may find not present in our daily life. It's shrouded as we see with traumatized eyes, jaded eyes, like the West Side Story that I referred to. And yet I am positing that this vision is ever present. And it's part of our nature, whether we remember it or not, whether we are engaged from that place or not. That takes great trust and surrender to claim that as quite possibly an ultimate truth. And then there was a spaciousness. So we had one day where we looked at children as having a sense of the veil is thin. There's a bridge between the heaviness of the material world and the possibilities that are available when we are in a spacious place. We focused on the pineal gland and the developmental aspect of the cerebral spinal fluid as a way of anchoring into the actual reality, the physiological reality that is part of our nature. And I posit again that that spaciousness of being is there. It is never lost. It is simply shrouded or not remembered or cut off from. And then yesterday we went into the imagination. And again, we look at that as a childlike quality where the world, everything is possible. Like Mary Oliver's poem, the world offers itself to your imagination, and how often children will be, I want to be a doctor. No, I want to be an architect. No, I want to be a ballerina. There's a sense of potentiality that creates a joy in the imagining of what's possible, not just the imagining outside this world, but the imagining right within the experience of being alive in this world. And I am positing that that imagination, and we've got proof because of the hippocampus research, is part of our nature. It can never be lost. It can be forgotten. It can be moved away from. It can be so uh, overlaid with enculturation that we can find it work or difficult to connect into in a real way. We can entertain the thought, but it's there. So I am putting out to you that everything we're exploring is part of your divinity. And the symbol we've got is child. It's not that children have it and adults don't, but the symbol is child because it pulls in our senses. It pulls in our cognition to reflect upon it in a tangible way. Divine child, then, is simply divinity. And all of these are, to me, as I think about innocence, all of these are capacities or bridges to innocence. When we open to the imagination, we touch in on a capacity within ourselves that is innocent. So I'm using the word innocence as not just another equal function, but rather a fundamental quality of our being, innocence. And so these are bridges to innocence. And when we entertain the possibility of remembering our innocence, it is truly scary to our fragile sense of self. You could say ego self, though I don't love the word ego so much because of the way it's used against us. But it is an undefended part of ourselves. It's a very tender part of ourselves. And what I think is worthy in this reflection to place there is a deep existential question. Why do we lose contact? You know, one of the deep wrestlings in humanity, which is in a way, kind of displaced upon an external God, is why does God allow suffering, right? Why? But if we internalize this conundrum and look at ourselves, if we're going to posit that our very nature is divine, why is the divinity of our being not operative in a way that we never lose contact with that divinity? And if the divinity is all, if it's transcendent and immanent and all powerful and the source of all of our freedom, and it's part of our nature and we never lose it, and it's the core of what we are, if we're wired for God, if we are this divinity, why is part of the process as we move into our lives and this development that we go through on this thing we call a journey, why does it not maintain our remembrance of who we are? This question, I think, isn't meant to lead us into a dogmatic conclusion. It's not meant to lead us into a spiritual answer that we hold on to like a mast in a storm. That it's too dynamic a question to offer a black and white land to stand on. It's provocative, it's evocative, and it's meant to dismantle whatever it is that has angst around this. because the angst is the tender self, the fragile self, the ego self. That angst is the ego self reaching and wanting to grasp for security that we're meant to have. That question, I believe, of why our divinity of our being doesn't maintain us in a stable place our whole lives, no matter what happens in this three-dimensional world, is meant to evoke the immediate experience of the compassion of our being and the objectivity of our being, and to experience anew, because it's the experience of innocence arising each moment. And that innocence will always take us into the unknown, not the known. So these deep angst-filled questions are meant to plummet us into the unknown. You see, it's not a cause and effect. The question doesn't arise so that we land on a solid answer, but so that it dismantles all the answers, so that we land in the divinity of our being. Let's take a moment there. Innocence arising is not the way we have constructed a judgmental field of consciousness, because that's largely what we do as we move through our lives. We develop a field of consciousness that is something inside of us that's watching and evaluating, watching and evaluating, watching and evaluating. It's a judgmental field. And that's one of the reasons I don't use the word ego so much, because a lot of times, even when we frame that in to define this way we are, we use it what? To watch and evaluate, to root us even more deeply in the judgmental field of consciousness. So innocence arising, part of the bridge to that is another childlike quality that's part of our divinity. And what is that? It's really a juicy one. It's curiosity. Not a curiosity that's angst-filled, but a curiosity that we come to through compassion and objectivity. A curiosity that the divine at the core of our being is curious about this life experience. Curious in such a way that it is dispassionate, that it is divinely disinterested from the deepest, most caring place. It is possible in each moment to exercise curiosity and open in new ways to the remembrance of the innocence arising within us. It is possible. Meditation and inquiry are the tools. Meditation is the skillfulness of allowing things to be as they are, which creates a dispassionate field within ourselves. And that inquiry is the curiosity to then say, what is this? Not what is this, but what is this? It's tender. It's scary for the fragile sense of self, but it is ultimately undefended and is possible in each moment. And what we discover, many people come to me to learn meditation, and it is 80 or 90% of the time, they say, I just can't quiet my mind. And I have the opportunity to say what I have discovered to be true. It's not about quieting your mind, which is creating a dispassionate field for the arising of thoughts, because ultimately, this is so magnificent. And I'm taking this phrase from Adyashanti. Ultimately, a thought is just a sound. How liberating is that? It's not that a thought doesn't matter. It's not that a thought isn't drawing our attention to something that's worthy of its attention or needful. And when we have a recurring pattern of thoughts or feelings, they're pointing to something in our unconscious that's calling our attention. But the way we learn is understanding that the thought is just a sound. The feeling is a vibrational movement that is arising within us, period. And the innocence arising is wishing us to engage it with a divine curiosity. We ultimately, as we remember our innocence, as we live our divinity, we engage free from the prism of ideas. See, even this talk is a construct, and the construct, it's meant to fall away. It's meant to plummet us into the experience. That's the role of words. It's the role of this methodology. That's the focus of anything that I'm in the service of. Curiosity. So we end our week with this curiosity that is a dispassionate, divinely disinterested, innocent arising that's engaging free of the prism of ideas, free of the judgmental watching and evaluating, that we're enculturated from a place of fear to live by. To live by. And if you're going to take this Advent series into your weekend, you could do some writing or some meditation around that phrase, to live by. In this moment of your life, what do you live by? Oh, okay. So today's practice is easy and hard at the same time. It's simple and hard at the same time. We're going to move into a dispassionate, wholly compassionate, disinterested, wholly caring observation of our beingness. And how we do that is to first, we're going to connect to the divinity. So we're not going to be the judge observing. We're going to connect to the divinity. Like, we're going to create a little spaciousness to, it's going to be maybe a felt sense, or it could feel a little artificial because it can be foreign to our way of operating in the world. But there's a felt sense of a spaciousness of allowing. We're going to allow that. And then we're going to allow whatever arises to arise. You're going to be in the silence with yourself. It's not that the world is an unsafe place. It's that we are unsafe to ourselves. But in any moment, that does not have to be the truth. That is the pattern of our lives. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to be safe for ourselves. Remembering that a thought is just a sound. A feeling is just a vibration. Yes, they matter because they are, but they don't matter in the way that we usually think. And the solution is not generally what we think. Right, so I invite you to close your eyes. We're going to allow the breath to be the way that we connect to the spaciousness of our being, because the breath is so tangible. So I invite you to begin by just allowing the breath to bring you into attentiveness. Rest into the movement of the breath. Rest into any aspect of the breath, the feeling of it, the texture of it, the body of it. And now bring your focus to wherever in your body the breath seems to be originating from. It's like a point from which the breath is coming and to which the body is returning. It could be a general point, like your whole torso, or it could be a specific point, like right between your rib cage somewhere. And bring all your focus to that point. While the breath continues, you're aware of the breath, but you're focused in on the point. As you focus on that point, either sense or imagine that that point is very light filled, vibrating light, or is a white light. And it's concentrated but potent. And in this light, keep the focus there. Notice or allow that this point within you, this light, is actually vibrating out, creating a field by which you are sustained, in which you live. And we're just opening up to that already is, where all things are okay. In this spaciousness now, we're going to enter into silence. In this silence, I want you, if as much as you can, to allow whatever arises, whatever thoughts, whatever feelings, whatever body sensations, we're simply allowing. I'll just do this for a few minutes. And as we bring this short practice to a close, see if you can today walk in this allowance. allowing the innocence to arise, remembering a thought is just a sound, a feeling is a vibrational frequency and movement, holding with holding it with great compassion, but great allowing, dispassionate, dispassionate compassion. When you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes. Great to be with you as always.